Okay, welcome back to the show. It's Ken Dunn, and I'm here in the studio today with Dwight Johnson, former Lieutenant Colonel in the Air Force in the United States, but now author and ethics expert. Dwight, thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here, Ken. Thank you.
So we've got a book. It's called The Ethical Coach Leader, and as I've studied getting ready for this show, I've learned that you've spent your entire career focusing on being as ethical as possible and teaching ethics principles. Where did the passion come from for ethics?
Well, when you are a commander in the Air Force, and I was a services squadron commander and or division chief 5 different times, you deal with ethics. And in my particular case, we had to have ethical people dealing with childcare, dealing with fitness, dealing with golf courses, dealing with fitness centers, libraries, as well as bowling centers and things like that. And one of the things is that when someone says, hey, you know what, we can probably do it a little bit like this, you have to look back at them and say, what are the rules, what are the laws, and why would we want to cheat on that? And that's when I became very passionate about ethics. And that's where that ethical drive, started generating itself within me. I was also on the Inspector General's team, which is they go around to different bases and they make sure that you are being ethical. And there are many stories I could tell about things that people didn't do that they were supposed to do.
Now, a lot of these times, was it outwardly people were being malicious in what they were thinking, or was it a combination of factors? Okay.
Both. One time I asked an individual who was a cashier, and I said, when was the last time that you played bingo here in the club? And she looked at me and she said, well, about 2 weeks ago. Oh, interesting. Well, can I see the paperwork? And I started looking at the paperwork, and she had signed off on the winning. She had requested the check to be made out to her, and that's a big red flag.
Right.
And she knew better. One time I had a lieutenant who was going to go on a trip, and he's supposed to use appropriated funded money, which means taxpayers' money. Instead, he was using non-appropriated funds, in which he requested the check, he signed the check, made out to himself.
Right.
And I stopped, when I found that, I stopped it, I destroyed the check, and then I had to report him in.
So really,
it becomes ethical.
So what you're telling me is that over a 30-year career in the military, teaching people about ethics, dealing with challenges in your reviews that discovered ethical challenges, you became passionate about ethics.
Without a doubt. Ethics should be something that no one should ever question, especially in the military. Or especially in business, or especially in your own life.
Right.
You should be accountable about your own life when it comes to ethics. Ethics is doing the right thing when nobody is looking.
Right. So, okay, here's the most important question. I get that you were a lieutenant colonel. I get that it's 30 years of ethics and walking the straight line in your life. I can understand why you'd want to write a book about it. But I'm struggling trying to figure out why you decided to write a parable. Tell me what happened.
Well, let me ask you this question. How many books do you know that have treated ethics in that kind of manner? In other words, telling a story about an ethical dilemma. And what I did was I took a look at that and I said, I can't find any. And so with that, I decided to go on this journey of writing about a coach who finds out that his star athlete was on steroids. And that part of the book came very easy to me because of all the things that are in the news today. And with that, I said, you know what? A lot of people learn different ways. Having been a teacher and having taught at the graduate level, taught at high school, I decided that I wanted to be able to treat this in a manner that somebody might be able to learn from a parable.
Right.
And that's how this book came about.
Now tell me about your own reading interest. Was there some tie to what you've read in the past? Have you read a lot of parables?
I have read a lot of parables. I think back to Kim Blanchard in The 1 Minute Manager, or Who Moved My Cheese. Pat Leniconi, who did 3 Signs of a Miserable Job.
Right.
And because I read those, it clicked. Hey, this is the way I need to write this book.
And of course, research shows that often people are more intrigued to finish reading a parable because of it is a story, and people like the idea of something that departs from the reality. But what I found uncanny about your book was the fact that you were able to really closely tie together your years of experience dealing with real ethical challenges. So although the story is fiction, the issues that you confront in it are reality.
Without a doubt. In fact, in the book, we even have a chapter called The Blueprint. And in the blueprint, we talk about what we need to do as individuals or what you need to do as a company on dealing with ethics. There are so many different companies out there that have gotten themselves in trouble, and Enron comes to mind right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why are we having these ethical issues? Because they don't have an ethical code. They don't have someone that is keeping them accountable in that area or in that arena. And each individual needs to be accountable to someone else in an ethical dilemma.
So Dwight, every time I have a chance to talk to an author like yourself about a book, I'm often caused to think back about the greatest books in history. Whenever I get into a conversation about one of the classics, time and time again, they seem to be remembered for one salient point, one thing that stands out. You know, if you think about your favorite book, and I ask you, what was the biggest lesson you took away from it? It's typically one thing that it's remembered for. So years from now, when somebody's talking about the ethical coach leader in the same fashion as Who Moved My Cheese, what's the one thing they're going to remember?
Accountability. That we have to be accountable for our own ethical behavior. When we are not accountable for our own ethical behavior, what happens is that you start down a very slippery slope. And I want people to be able to go back, use the ethical coach leader as a life textbook. And in that manner, I mean on a daily basis. Be able to say, okay, I need to be held accountable. And if I'm starting to go down that slippery slope, I need to catch myself and come back, because one of the worst things is that once you have cheated, you'll cheat again.
It opens that proverbial Pandora's box.
Without a doubt.
Well, The Ethical Coach Leader is definitely a captivating book. It's a great read, it's short and concise, and it tells a very incredible story that is real world. Dwight, thanks for being on the show with us today.
You bet.
If you're interested in learning more about Dwight Johnson or his book, check out nextcenturypublishing.com or your local bookstore.